When I got the invitation from Sachi, which was a phone call, I had no idea what Awaken Talks is all about. But I realized that it's something, it's something different where people are talking about sharing and coming together. And I felt that I should put in the effort to put my thoughts down. And so I'll read it out a bit, if you don't mind. So I'm deeply humbled and grateful to be invited here with all of you. I'm also thrilled at this rare opportunity to open up and share my heart with all of you and talk about things that we usually do not get a chance to talk about. What I'd like to talk about today is love, actually. Not the ephemeral, evanescent ideal that one writes poetry about, or the force that sweeps us helplessly away, but the hardcore, intense, fierce, nitty-gritty, imperfect practice of choosing to love many people every day of every year, about failing again and again and rededicating ourselves to it each time. To speak about this today is particularly special because on the 1st of February, my organization Samaj Pragati Sahayog began its 25th year. Since I've never done this before and with so many people at the same time, and because I'm nervous and I thought I should be a bit careful about what I say, and also to make it useful for everybody, I wrote it down, and I hope you won't mind if I read out sections. So my story is really the story of my life with my friends. I'm inseparable from them. So there is no other story to tell. They are, so I am. My sense of self is inextricably intertwined with them, and I stand before you today, thrown and hammered and shaped and breaking down and dissolved and still in formation because of them. Because of their love, their goodness, their exasperation with me, and their unflinching commitment. It is this that has given birth to Samaj Pragati Sahayog. To give you a brief glimpse, Samaj Pragati Sahayog is located in a remote, backward tribal area of Madhya Pradesh and works primarily on watershed management, agriculture, livelihoods, the right to food, MGNREGA, and women's empowerment. We began in 1990, 10 friends working in one village. Today, there are 400 people helping us work, with almost 60,000 families in 300 villages and towns of our area. We now assist 2,000 self-help groups of women who have come together to form 5 federations and 2 companies. Each federation has a membership of 4,000 to 5,000 women. So far, SPS SHGs have saved more than rupees 10 crores and have disbursed more than 50 crores to their members, who all belong to the marginalized, the poor, Dalits, Adivasis, displaced. It is the power of their togetherness and their solidarity that has emerged as the key building block for effective empowerment of the poor, giving them the courage to become equal partners in the development process, even while fighting corruption, malnutrition, and injustice in the area. SPS is also working with many grassroots organizations and state governments across the country, forging partnerships to make MGNREGA work on the ground for the people and on revitalizing rain-fed agriculture and making it pesticide-free. As I look back, glowing underneath this stack of history are small memories of how we have loved each other. Someone staying awake to warm your food if you came back tired and hungry. A piece of paper with a reminder so that you do not forget something. Everyone weeping unashamedly when a fight between us got resolved. Everyone weeping to sad songs in a singing session. Or skipping off to play cricket, the one tip, one hand kind of cricket in the forest when things got too tough. And of course, never being able to agree on anything ever, but still coming back intact. So the idea of Samaj Pragati Sahayog, or my life in that sense, was born on, in street corners and in crowded buses, in railway stations and at dhabas where you could get unlimited dal and roti for 2 rupees. So we were students at that time, and we had a street theatre group called Awakin, which means to call forth. So our plays were about, at that time, our plays were, against the Asiad, for instance, about the paradox of an event like the Asiad, where mammoth structures were being built by desperate migrant workers who had no food, no shelter, no rights. They were about the riots in 1984, the Sikh riots. And so we would perform to this crowd all around us. The crowds would throng around us in these factories or street corners or parks in Delhi or resettlement colonies. And our plays were met with a lot of appreciation, a lot of interruptions and tears and anger and laughter. But at the end, when all of us were left alone to walk back home, the question that would come to our minds would be, what was this about? I mean, was this enough for us to do? And how could we just go back home and to the comforts of our houses, leaving things just there? So it was this dichotomy where you were in the thick of, let's say, talking about the contentious issues of the world, and right after that you went back cocooned in your safe, privileged homes of Delhi. That was the time when 1984 to 1987 was the time of the Bhopal gas tragedy, which affected a lot of our lives. It was also the time of the Narmada Bachao Andolan, which was led by Baba Amte and Medha Patkar. So these were very disturbing times, and times that, compelled one to do something for someone somewhere. It didn't matter what we did, but we really felt the need to go out of Delhi and begin work. So in 1987, we plunged into life together. We started with our small savings, pooled together from different jobs in Delhi and Bombay, and from research projects traveling to unreachable villages. In 1990, Baba Amte blessed our group with the name Samaj Pragati Sahayog. Finally, 8 of us committed ourselves to living together to find alternatives to big dams in a remote tribal, hilly and forested part of the Narmada Valley, in a corner of the district called Bagli Tehsil. With our books and mattresses, pots and pans strapped to a motorcycle or loaded on top of buses, we moved into the hinterlands of rural India. And the abandoned cattle sheds rented out by the Raja of Bagli at that time became our home for the next 10 years. Between lugging buckets of drinking water up the hill and carrying loads of vegetables back from the weekly hut, between washing, cleaning, and cooking for each other, we learned the arduous rhythm and dignity of housework that was all about caring. Walking for miles over lumps of hard earth in the summer sun with a dumpy level. A dumpy level is this heavy instrument with which you do surveys. You survey the landscape. Carrying headloads on watershed construction sites, we learned humility. Wanting to belong, to fit in, to be accepted by the village, by neighbors and passengers in the bus, ingrained in us the cryptic etiquette of village life. These years of working in the elemental, rugged landscape of central India, making our own money stretch as far as possible, taught us the intricate craft of frugality. In 1993, my father, Dr. Dewas Banerji, and he left his job in the university. He was just 54 at that time. And so I was talking to people in the morning, that my parents being there with me is a very big thing, because as I was growing up, I really had no choice in the matter of what I would do. It was very clear from the beginning that I came from a privileged background, and my entire childhood was spent knowing that fact. I could not leave a grain of food on my plate. Throughout our childhood, although they were university professors, they, uh, we did not have anybody left to, uh, to clean the house or whatever. The children, that is me, my brother and sister, had to come home and do all the housework, regardless. As part of our training, we were made to fill buckets, from the hand pump. So when I went to the village, all this training was, it was like I belonged wherever I wanted to be. So our resolve was to ensure that funds meant for rural development should reach the people. So we chose in the initial years to work only with government funds. So the projects that we got used to have very small administrative costs, which meant 1 or 2 salaries, which were always shared by the 10 of us. This unwritten, unspoken, unusual yet simple bond between us is still the same even today. Our entire salaries are always pooled to meet our daily expenses, honor commitments, and secure the future of our children. During this time, our relentless trial was to vanquish the fear, anger, and helplessness from within ourselves and from within those who supported us when we were confronted by the horrors of violent opposition. In the first 10 years, our work provoked intense opposition from vested interests. We saw village women and men bullied and beaten, community wells and toilets we had built sabotaged, a harmless tailoring unit for women engulfed in flames. From the forest guard to the powerful politician, from the sarpanch to the police, from the trader to the high priest of religious factions, each day was a moment of reckoning. Among the initiatives that threatened all these people were, we did a land records camp where thousands of land records were updated. And we did water agreements, which were all areas of intense conflict. And we had no idea that we were stepping into this because we were so lost in the detail of what we were doing. We didn't know how to build dams, so we were learning how to, what was clay all about. I had never stitched, let's say, for a production unit. So I was trying to figure out fabric and, the joints of brick and mortar, every grass that we planted. We never realized that what we thought of as unremarkable were actually challenging very deep-rooted, tenacious webs of exploitation in the area. Because the consequences of our actions put the most vulnerable at risk, because each situation was fraught with tension and riddled with conflict, because each conflict was like dry tinder waiting to spark into violence, and because violence only ended in irreconcilable differences, we chose to live the path of patiently, peacefully, painstakingly bringing people together. More than any other, this was the hardest. For it meant, first of all, peeling away our own egos layer by layer, banking the burning sense of indignation, the craving to express our own anguish, curbing the recoil of horror and unease at having to reach out to and disarm the other who was unscrupulous, who was corrupt, who was dishonest, and probably who was very dangerous. But this had to be the only way forward for us, to become the responsive medium through which differences could be resolved, so as to set slow but enduring processes into motion, processes of reconciliation, development, and empowerment. What has given enduring strength to our work and has enabled the creation of large organizations, institutions led by local women, companies and consortiums of NGOs in the country is our own art of being together. My friends and I were all very different from each other. Different backgrounds, different personalities, different capabilities, habits, ways of living and speaking, very strong opinions. But what we never lost sight of was that we were gifted to each other. And so we affirmed each other, valued our differences to arrive at complementarity. None of this is, of course, as easy as it sounds. The practice of love meant fighting it out and realizing that hurting the other was far more unbearable. It meant cherishing that startling awareness that unless they were happy, you were not. It meant being there, fully present, to cook and clean and write reports and proposals and do accounts. It meant dissolving one's ego enough to laugh at oneself. Today, after 25 years, we still struggle with our finiteness, our limitations, our incompleteness, and our incapability. And yet, it is from this life that we need to invent all the time that which will take us from failure, hostility, incapability, and limitations to the realm of possibility. It is from this life that we derive our faith and learn our core values: compassion, forgiveness, humility, and balance. These are the 4 core values of SPS. All I know is that I got this life on a golden platter, the best of everything: family, friends, love, people, chances. And yet, I was neither kind nor as gentle as much as I should have been. I felt entitled to anger, irritation, indignance, intolerance. Today I'm appalled at how much I took for granted. And now I just hope it's not too little too late. If I get another life, the only thing I would ask God to change would be those times when I could have been loving instead of being harsh. I wish I could have spelt out more this practice of love, but then it would have lost its miraculousness. I hope that through this story you could feel it. Thank you.